Was Elon the critical ingredient? Did he give people cover?
I think Elon was incredibly important to it.
In this clip, investor Peter Thiel, who has been called the most successful tech investor in the world, calls out Elon Musk for giving cover for free political expression and freedom of speech. As the first Trump assassination attempt was unfolding in Butler, Pennsylvania, Elon Musk came out with a strong endorsement of U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump. Peter Thiel claims this act certainly seemed incredibly dangerous, incredibly courageous, and that he gave cover to everybody.
Different place.
Let's talk a little bit about the shift that happened in Silicon Valley, okay? Mm-hmm. Because I think what happened is what's called a preference cascade. You probably know that term better than me, but it's essentially when several people, maybe a group of people, around the same time realize they're not the only one. And in fact, maybe they represent, if not a majority, a powerful minority. And I remember it very clearly because it was the day our son was born. Our son was born, and a few hours later, Trump got shot at in Butler. And I watched as people who had sort of, all of the aesthetics had been indicating to me that they were Trump supporters. But all of a sudden, with the picture of Trump and all of them retweeting it, it became, oh my God, like abundantly clear as one after the other sort of started to basically endorse him with this picture.
Yes.
Explain that phenomenon to me, because like me, I'm sure you know lots of people who have sort of like one politics on Signal or WhatsApp and another politics in public. And I felt like over the course of basically from July to the election, the gap between those things sort of radically narrowed. Yes. What happened?
Yeah, it's probably something like what you described. It's there was some degree to which it was safer for people to speak out when other people were speaking out. Once if you're lying and that everybody's lying and that everybody knows that everybody knows that everybody's lying, at some point it becomes pretty unstable and it can just all of a sudden, shift pretty fast into...
Was Elon the critical ingredient? Did he give people cover?
I think Elon was incredibly important to it. I think there were a lot of pieces that had built up in Silicon Valley. There was always a way where for many years people had been doubling down on the wokeness, the political correctness, inside these companies, and then it's always an ambiguous thing. If something is not working, let's say wokeness isn't really working, it's not making your employees happier and more productive and more constructive, and it's instead deranging it. But the ambiguity is, does that mean you need to have more wokeness, or do you need to cut it out altogether? Mm-hmm. And for a number of years, the intuition was, well, we just have to do a little bit more. We have to try a little bit harder and do a little bit more. And then, there's some point where it just got exhausted. And certainly a lot of the top tech founders and CEOs felt comfortable telling me this behind closed doors, and maybe they're just telling me things that I want to hear, but I tend to think they're telling me what they really think. And so I was very aware of this incredible disconnect. And it was in Silicon Valley, I think a lot of it was experienced as corporate governance, as how ridiculous it's gotten to manage these ideologically deranged millennial employees. And there was, I'll try not to name names, but one of the bigger companies that was in San Francisco, the people in 2017, the founders told me, it was, they weren't sure they could take any more money from me because I supported Trump, and it was sort of difficult to explain to their employees. But it was about a 12-month period. By 2019, they hadn't shifted to being pro-Trump, but they really appreciated my courage, and they organized their company where they had the hiring goals were to shift employees away from San Francisco Bay Area as fast as possible. So we have X% of people working in San Francisco, and we want to reduce that percentage as quickly as possible for a company as big as we are. and that was, and then if we build our employee workforce in any place other than San Francisco, it'll be less woke and less crazy and more productive. And so this was the kind of just very prosaic conversation you had about how to manage a company, and then at some point we got the preference cascade that was 2024. But yeah, obviously Elon gave people a great deal of cover. It certainly seemed incredibly dangerous to me what he did, incredibly courageous. What would have happened to him if Trump would have lost, and then certainly it was, well, maybe all of the rest of us can be a little bit more courageous than we otherwise were going to be, but he gave cover to everybody.